Vanessa Pierce's palm slammed against the marble counter, the crack echoing through the Grandstone Plaza lobby like a gunshot. The words came out cold, final, surgical. "You're fired. Security,
This isn't good
escort
enough.
him out.
We've
Now!"
got to fix this
Mason
now.
Bridger stood motionless, the industrial mop still gripped in his calloused hands, his faded blue janitor's uniform stained dark with floor cleaner that smelled of pine and chemicals. 50 employees had gathered for the morning shift change, housekeepers clutching fresh linens, bellhops adjusting their brass-buttoned jackets, front desk staff mid-login to their terminals. All of them frozen now, witnesses to an execution they hadn't asked to see. Mason's voice came out quiet, controlled, the tone of a man who'd learned long ago that begging changed nothing. "Ma'am, I have a daughter. She needs her insulin tonight. The prescription's due at 5. Can I please get my last paycheck before I leave?" Vanessa heard the desperation he was trying to hide, saw it flicker across his face like heat lightning. There and gone. For half a heartbeat, something human stirred behind her own carefully constructed armor. Then her eyes flicked to the balcony where Gregory Ashford stood watching, his silver hair catching the morning light, that predatory smile already forming. The board meeting started in 18 minutes. She couldn't afford weakness. "Security will mail your final check. Surrender your badge and leave immediately." The window beside the entrance shuddered. A sound like thunder rolled across the parking lot, deep and mechanical and impossible to ignore. The rotor wash hit the glass in waves as the Coast Guard MH-65 Dolphin helicopter descended through the crisp March air, orange and white against the gray Chicago sky. A woman in dress blues stepped out, captain's eagles gleaming on her shoulders, a megaphone already raised to her lips. "We're here for Chief Petty Officer Ironside. We know he's inside this building. This is a matter of national security." Vanessa's face drained of color. Every molecule of oxygen seemed to vanish from the room. Mason stopped walking. 50 pairs of eyes swiveled toward him, confusion spreading like wildfire. Garrett Sullivan, the night supervisor, whispered under his breath, "Sweet, merciful God, Ironside." 47 minutes earlier, the alarm on Mason's phone had buzzed at 4:30 in the morning, the same as it had every day for 3 years. He silenced it before the second vibration, muscle memory from a decade and a half of pre-dawn operations when noise discipline meant the difference between mission success and body bags. The studio apartment was dark, silent except for the hum of the ancient refrigerator and the soft rhythm of Harper's breathing from the pull-out couch across the room. He dressed in the bathroom with the door closed, pulling on the blue uniform that had become his second skin. Polyester blend, worn thin at the elbows. A small tear in the left knee he'd sewn shut with dental floss because thread cost money he didn't have. The fabric smelled faintly of industrial cleaning solution, no matter how many times he washed it. Harper's insulin supplies covered half the kitchen counter. Test strips in their plastic vials, the glucometer with its cracked display screen, alcohol wipes, the emergency glucagon kit in its red case. He checked the refrigerator. 4 units of rapid-acting insulin left, maybe 5 if he was careful. The prescription refill was due today at Harper's Pharmacy, 3 blocks east on 18th Street. He left a note for Mrs. Louise Hoffman, the neighbor who watched Harper during early shifts. "Harper's breakfast in fridge, insulin at 7 a.m., 4 units. I'll be home by 4 p.m. M." The walk to Grandstone Plaza took 38 minutes through Pilsen's quiet streets, past shuttered taquerias and corner stores with iron gates still locked, past murals of Frida Kahlo painted on brick walls that had witnessed generations of struggle. The movement kept his mind occupied, kept the memories at bay. Mostly. The hotel rose like a monument to wealth he'd never touch, all glass and steel and marble imported from quarries in Vermont. He entered through the service door, nodded to the overnight security guard, and made his way to the third-floor utility closet where his supplies waited. Mop, bucket, cleaning solutions in their color-coded bottles, the UV filtration unit he'd assembled from parts ordered online, paid for over 6 months in $5 increments. The Azure Ballroom needed to be spotless before the 7:30 board meeting. 4,000 square feet of Italian marble, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Michigan Avenue. He'd finished the work at 5, moving through the space with the efficiency of a man who'd learned to waste nothing, not motion, not time, not breath. Garrett found him restocking supplies at 6:47. Mace, board meeting in the Azure. They need the floor perfect in 20 minutes. Mason didn't look up from the inventory sheet he was updating. Already done. Finished at 5. Garrett stopped walking. Mason could feel the weight of his stare, the same confused scrutiny that had been building for months. 5 in the morning. That's a 4,000 square foot room, and I know what it is. How do you do that? 3 years I've been trying to figure you out, Mace. You work like a machine, never tired, never slow. The way you move, it's like you're military or something. Mason finally met his eyes, keeping his face neutral. Practice. But Garrett was former Navy, 30 years ago, just a Seabee doing construction work. He recognized things other people missed. The way Mason's eyes automatically swept every room for exits, the precise economy of his movements, the old green duffel bag in his locker with patches that had been carefully removed. Mason's phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Hoffman. Harper's up, says she feels dizzy. Checked her sugar, it's 68, gave her juice. She's asking when you're coming home. From 68, below the safe threshold of 70, hovering at the edge where things could spiral fast. Not critical yet, but a warning sign that today might be difficult. Mason's fingers moved across the screen. Tell her Daddy will bring her favorite ice cream tonight. Tell her I love her. The reply came seconds later. She says she loves you to the moon and back. I'll watch her sugar. He stood there staring at the words until they blurred. The monthly arithmetic ran through his head unbidden. Rent $1,400, utilities $180, food $250, insulin $212 due today at 5. Total $2,042. Available funds $143.67. Paycheck today would bring in $340, enough to cover the insulin and leave scraps for everything else. Garrett's voice pulled him back. Mace, you okay? Fine. What else needs doing? Garrett's expression changed, tightened with something that looked like concern mixed with dread. Ms. Pierce wants to see you. Now. Main lobby. The air in the hallway suddenly felt thinner. Why? Complaint about your cleaning methods. The UV filtration thing you built. He paused. I think she's going to make an example out of someone. I think that someone is you. Mason followed him through the service corridors, past the industrial washers and the employee break room with its ancient coffee maker and motivational posters about teamwork that no one read. The main lobby opened before them like a stage set for disaster. Vanessa Pierce standing near the reception desk in a black Armani suit and Louboutin heels the color of arterial blood. 3 security guards arrayed behind her. Rachel, the assistant, hovering at her elbow with a tablet clutched to her chest like a shield. The morning shift had arrived. 50 employees clustered in small groups, conversations dying as they registered the tableau, the electricity of impending catastrophe charging the air. Mason walked forward. His mind cataloged details automatically. Vanessa's micro-expressions, the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes kept flicking to the balcony where Gregory Ashford watched with the satisfied patience of a man who'd already won. Vanessa's gaze locked onto Mason like targeting radar. She saw a man in his early 40s, lean to the point of gaunt, uniform hanging loose on a frame that had once carried more muscle, dark circles under eyes that held something she couldn't identify. Something calm. You're Mason Bridger. Statement, not question. Yes, ma'am. You've been using unauthorized cleaning methods in this hotel. The accusation hung in the air. 50 witnesses held their breath. Mason kept his voice level, professional. I've been using UV-activated water filtration. It's Coast Guard standard protocol for rapid decontamination. The technique removes 99% of contaminants in half the time of your approved chlorine solution. Safer for guests with respiratory issues. Somewhere in the crowd, someone gasped. Vanessa felt the challenge like a slap. This janitor, this employee who made $12 an hour, was contradicting her. In front of 50 people, 18 minutes before a board meeting where Gregory would be watching for any sign of weakness. It's not in our manual. Mason didn't flinch, didn't step back. No, ma'am, because it's better than what's in your manual. The lobby went silent. 50 people stopped breathing. Vanessa's cheeks flushed, not embarrassment, pure rage. Excuse me. Mason's tactical mind registered the mistake even as the words left his mouth. But the truth was the truth, and he'd never learned how to lie about things that mattered. Your protocol uses 15-minute contact time with chlorine-based solution. My method uses UV filtration with an 8-minute cycle. I've decontaminated rescue stations in hurricane zones where failure meant people died. I know what works. Whispers rippled through the staff. Hurricane zones? The janitor? Vanessa's internal voice, the one that sounded like her father, Robert Pierce, spoke with absolute certainty. Weakness is death in business. Show mercy, and they'll tear you apart. She glanced at Gregory on the balcony. He was smiling now. The board meeting in 16 minutes. The vote of no confidence in 72 hours. Her entire legacy balanced on a knife's edge, and this janitor had just challenged her in front of 50 witnesses. The decision crystallized. Cold, final, necessary. Mr. Bridger, you don't follow protocol. You're fired, effective immediately. The words landed like artillery shells. Mason stood perfectly still, hands relaxed at his sides, face showing nothing. But inside, the calculations were running. Harper, insulin, $212 due at 5, $143 in the bank. No paycheck now, no way to cover the difference. His voice came out quiet, stripped of everything except desperate honesty. Ma'am, I have a daughter. She's sick. Type 1 diabetes. Her insulin prescription is due today at 5 o'clock. Can I please get my last paycheck before I go? I just need to pick up her medication. Vanessa saw it then. The crack in his armor. The moment when the man's pride shattered and exposed the father underneath. She saw it and recognized it and felt something twist in her chest. Her eyes found the employee badge clipped to Mason's uniform pocket. The photo showed a little girl with blonde hair and a gap-toothed smile, maybe 9 or 10 years old. But Gregory was watching. The board meeting in 15 minutes, 50 witnesses waiting to see if she would crack. Her father's voice again. The moment you show compassion, you've lost. Security will mail your final check. Surrender your badge and leave the premises immediately. Mason unclipped the badge, the plastic laminate catching the light as he handed it to Garrett. Their eyes met for 1 second. Garrett's filled with shame. Mason's empty of everything except exhaustion. Mason turned and walked toward the service exit, head level, shoulders back, moving with the deliberate control of a man who refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. 50 people watched him go. Some felt bad. Most stayed silent, protecting themselves. Vanessa's voice followed him across the marble expanse. Let this be a reminder to all staff. Protocol exists for a reason. Deviation will not be tolerated. The service door closed behind Mason with a soft click. The morning sun hit his face, bright and indifferent. March in Chicago meant temperatures in the high 30s, wind coming off the lake like knives made of ice, cutting through his thin uniform as if it were tissue paper. He stood alone in the parking lot, unemployed, unable to afford his daughter's insulin, the future collapsing into impossible choices. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Hoffman. Mason. Harper's blood sugar dropped to 58. Gave her more juice and crackers. She says her stomach feels funny, but she's being brave. When are you coming home? 58. Hypoglycemia territory. Not critical, not yet, but dropping. He sat on the curb, head in his hands, 41 years old and broken in ways that had nothing to do with his body and everything to do with his soul. The morning traffic on Michigan Avenue rushed past, oblivious. Everyone inside those cars heading toward lives that made sense, toward problems that had solutions. He didn't hear the footsteps approaching until a woman's voice cut through his despair. Mason Bridger? He looked up. The woman wore Coast Guard dress blues, captain's insignia gleaming, silver hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Yeah. She extended her hand. He didn't take it. Captain Sarah Blackwell, Coast Guard Search and Rescue Command. We need to talk. Mason stood, knees protesting. I'm not interested in re-enlisting. Sarah sat on the curb beside him, casual, non-threatening. That's not why I'm here. Traffic kept flowing. The city kept moving. Sarah let the silence stretch, then spoke. There's a cruise ship in trouble. MV Arctic Majesty. 847 passengers. 212 crew. Hit submerged rocks off Kodiak Island 14 hours ago. Taking on water. Listing 11 degrees. Mason didn't react. His training had taught him to receive bad news with the same expression he used for good news. For everything. But his mind was already working. Already analyzing. We've attempted 2 rescue operations, both failed. The underwater rock formations create a maze. Our boats can't get close enough without risking hull damage. She pulled out a tablet, brought up satellite imagery. Mason's eyes tracked to the screen before he could stop himself. The rock formations were visible even from orbit, dark shapes beneath the gray Alaskan water, scattered in patterns that would shred any hull that approached without perfect precision. His training kicked in, tide schedules, current patterns, approach vectors. He forced himself to look away. Find someone else. Sarah's voice stayed gentle, patient. There is no one else, Mason. Lieutenant Briggs developed Parkinson's. Can't hold a steering wheel steady. Commander Hayes is in the Bering Sea, 18 hours away minimum. Mason stood, turning his back on her. I have a daughter who needs insulin today. I just lost my job. I have $143 to my name and I need 212 by 5 o'clock or she goes into diabetic shock. So unless you can fix that, Captain, I can't help you. Sarah stood as well, her face showing no surprise. Emergency fund covers it. $212 for the insulin plus $500 advance on consultation fee. Wire transfer. Hits your account in 30 minutes. Mason stopped walking. Sarah continued, her voice soft but relentless. One of those passengers is Dr. Ann Morrison, pediatric oncologist. Her husband died of cancer 18 months ago. She took her 9-year-old son Thomas on this cruise. First vacation since the funeral. She pulled up a photo. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes holding a boy with his mother's smile. Thomas is on that ship right now, wondering if he's going to watch his mother drown. Mason closed his eyes. The images hit him like physical blows. Harper at 5 years old asking why Mommy wouldn't wake up. Marcus Webb bleeding out in his arms during Arctic Sentinel, whispering, "Don't let this be for nothing." The 12 fishermen he'd saved and the one he'd missed. Fingers an inch away as the man slipped under. When he opened his eyes, Sarah was waiting. Where's your command center? Sarah almost smiled. Grandstone Plaza Hotel, Conference Room B. CEO gave us access this morning. Mason's laugh came out bitter. Of course. The woman who just fired me is hosting the Coast Guard. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. You work here? Mason gestured at his stained uniform. Past tense. 3 years as a janitor. She didn't know. Nobody knew. Sarah studied him for the first time, really seeing him. Jesus, Mace, why hide? Mason's voice came out flat, empty of everything except truth. Because Chief Petty Officer Ironside couldn't be Harper's father. Ironside lived in helicopters and freezing water and operational briefings at 0:30. He didn't make spaghetti dinners. He didn't help with 4th-grade math homework. He didn't sit by hospital beds at 2 in the morning when his daughter's blood sugar crashed. He paused. I buried Ironside when I buried my wife. Mason Bridger, the janitor. He's the one who could be there for Harper every single day at 4 o'clock. He's the one she needed. Sarah nodded slowly. And now? Mason looked toward the hotel, saw Vanessa through the glass wall, pacing, agitated. Now 847 people need a ghost I've been trying to keep buried. They walked back through the service entrance. Staff members whispered, stared, pointed. Garrett intercepted them near the employee lockers. Mace, what's going on? Coast Guard needs a consultation. I'll be in Conference Room B. Garrett looked at Sarah's uniform, at Mason's face, and the pieces started clicking into place. Holy shit, you're military! Mason didn't confirm or deny. Not anymore. Just helping with a situation. Conference Room B had been transformed. Satellite feeds covered every wall. Secure communication lines snaked across the floor. Coast Guard personnel moved with urgent precision. Mason walked in still wearing his janitor's uniform, and every person in the room stopped moving, stopped talking, turned to stare. Sarah's voice cut through the silence. Everyone, this is Chief Petty Officer Mason Bridger, call sign Ironside. He's going to find us a way through that rock field. A young petty officer, maybe 25, red hair, freckles, stepped forward, eyes wide. Sir? The Ironside? From Operation Arctic Sentinel? Mason's jaw tightened. That's old news, son. The kid, his name tag read Reeves, shook his head. Sir, we study that operation at Rescue Swimmer School. You're a legend. Focus on the current mission, Petty Officer. Reeves snapped to attention. Yes, sir. Mason turned to the central display. The satellite imagery showed the MV Arctic Majesty listing, passengers visible on the tilted decks. Show me the sonar mapping. A lieutenant commander brought up the underwater scans. Mason studied them in silence, his trained eyes picking out patterns that the software missed. His finger traced a gap in the rock formation. Here. The lieutenant commander leaned in, frowning. There's nothing there, sir. Sonar shows solid rock. Mason's voice carried absolute certainty. Sonar's wrong. There's a channel, 40 feet wide, deep enough for rigid hull inflatables at high tide. The rocks create an acoustic shadow that confuses standard mapping. How do you know? The room waited. Mason's mind was already there. March 2019, Category 3 storm. Marcus beside him in the boat, both of them running the channel in conditions that killed experienced pilots. Operation Arctic Sentinel. We brought 3 rescue boats through that channel during the Northern Spirit recovery. I've run it before. I can run it again. Sarah pulled up a classified file, projected it on the main screen. After-action reports, photos, commendation citations. A photo of Mason 5 years younger, wrapped in a thermal blanket on a helicopter deck. 1,000-yard stare. Show me current ship status. Sarah switched displays. The Arctic Majesty had deteriorated. 14-degree list now, engineering estimates down to 18 hours before she rolled. Mason ran the calculations aloud. Tide window opens at 14:12 local time, 47-minute window before current shifts and the channel closes. We run convoys. All boats through together, load maximum capacity, return before window closes. A grizzled boat chief, name tag Kelly, raised his hand. Chief, what's our margin for error on that dogleg turn at 60 meters? Mason met his eyes. 0. Miss it by 3 feet. You're on the rocks. Current pushes 6 knots cross-channel. You'll have maybe 2 seconds to correct before the hull shreds. Silence settled over the room. Kelly nodded slowly. Fair enough, sir. We'll follow your lead. Outside the conference room, Vanessa stood frozen at the glass wall. She'd been there for 20 minutes, watching. Rachel appeared beside her, tablet extended. Ms. Pierce, I found his file. His real file. The tablet screen showed military service records. Vanessa read in silence, her hands beginning to shake. Mason Charles Bridger, Chief Petty Officer, Coast Guard, 16 years active duty, aviation rescue swimmer, 437 lives saved, Coast Guard Medal, Operation Arctic Sentinel, partner KIA, wife deceased, daughter with diabetes, honorable discharge. Vanessa's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing tears. 437 lives. Partner died in his arms. Wife died 3 months later. Gave up everything to be a father. Worked for $12 an hour pushing a mop. And she'd fired him for cleaning floors too well. Rachel's voice came soft. Miss Pierce, are you? Vanessa couldn't answer. Just stared through the glass at the man she'd destroyed 30 minutes ago. Inside Conference Room B, Mason's phone rang. Mrs. Hoffman. He stepped away from the tactical displays. Louise, how is she? Mrs. Hoffman's voice carried relief. Blood sugar's back to 96. She ate some crackers. She's asking about you. Mason's chest loosened fractionally. Tell her I'll be home soon. Tell her I love her. She says she loves you to the moon and back. Mason, she saw the news about the ship. She knows. His eyes closed. Of course Harper knew. What did she say? She said her daddy was going to save people. She said you promised her you'd always come home. Mason's throat tightened. I will. I promise. He ended the call, stood in silence for 10 seconds, compartmentalizing. When he returned to the planning table, his face showed nothing except focus. Sarah caught his eye, understanding passing between them without words. Mason, if you need to, I'm good. Let's finish the plan. They worked for 2 more hours, mapping approach vectors, calculating load capacities, coordinating with helicopter support. Mason's mind operated on 2 levels simultaneously, the tactical surface where he solved problems, and the subterranean depth where memories of Marcus and Kate pressed against the walls of his consciousness like water against a failing hull. At 10:30, Sarah called for final briefing. Transport helicopter leaves in 4 hours, gets you to Kodiak by 1800 local time. First rescue attempt at 2100. Mace, this isn't one boat trip. That channel's too dangerous. You'll need to pilot lead boat for every convoy run until everyone's off. That's potentially 8 to 10 hours on the water in March off Alaska. Mason's voice came out steady. I know. You've been out of the field for 5 years. Your body's older. Muscle memory doesn't fade. I'm ready. Sarah searched his face for doubt, for hesitation. She found none. Okay. Wheels up at 14:30. Mason's phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Hoffman. Mason, Harper's blood sugar dropped again. 42 this time. I had to use the emergency glucagon. Paramedics are here. They want to take her to Northwestern Memorial. 42. Dangerously low. Emergency glucagon meant she'd been minutes from seizure, from coma. The room tilted. Sarah was beside him instantly. Mace, what's wrong? He showed her the phone. Go! We'll figure something else out. Mason looked at the satellite display. 847 heat signatures. Thomas Morrison's face. Marcus's voice saying, "Don't let this be for nothing." How long until the helicopter leaves? 4 hours. Northwestern Memorial is 20 minutes from here. I can get there, make sure she's stable, be back in 2 hours. Sarah hesitated. 2 hours, not a minute more. She nodded. 2 hours. Mason ran. The emergency room doors parted with a pneumatic hiss. Fluorescent lighting turned everything the color of old ice. He spotted Mrs. Hoffman before she saw him, gray hair disheveled, hands clasped together so tightly the knuckles had gone white. Harper lay on a gurney, IV line threading into her left arm, leads from the heart monitor creating a constellation of wires across her thin chest. Her eyes opened when she heard his footsteps, and the smile that broke across her pale face made something crack inside his ribcage. "Daddy!" He was beside her in 3 strides. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Harper's fingers wrapped around his wrist. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get sick." The words hit him like buckshot. "Never apologize for that. Never. This isn't your fault." A doctor approached. Her name tag read, Dr. Reyes, Pediatric Endocrinology. "Mr. Bridger, Harper's stable now. Blood sugar's at 95. We're running comprehensive labs to check for diabetic ketoacidosis, but preliminary indicators look manageable." "How long does she need to stay?" Dr. Reyes consulted her tablet. 24 to 48 hours. We need to monitor her closely, adjust her insulin regimen, make sure the ketone levels normalize. 24 to 48 hours. The rescue operation would be over by then. He couldn't stay. 847 people didn't have 24 hours to wait. Harper's hand tightened on his wrist, reading his face. "You have to go help those people." Mason shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." Harper pushed herself up on the gurney, IV line pulling taut, monitors beeping warnings that Dr. Reyes quickly silenced. "Daddy, listen to me." The authority in her voice, 10 years old but carrying weight no child should have, stopped his protest. "You always tell me that heroes aren't people who save everyone. Heroes are people who try their hardest even when it's impossible. You told me that after Mommy died, when I asked why the doctors couldn't fix her." Tears burned behind Mason's eyes. "I said that?" Harper nodded. "And you said that trying matters more than succeeding, that doing the hard thing when you're scared is what makes someone brave." She pulled his hand close, pressing it against her chest where he could feel her heartbeat. "Those people on that ship are scared. They need someone brave. They need you." Mrs. Hoffman's voice came from behind him. "She's right, Mason. And I'll be here. Every single second. You have my word." Mason looked at Harper. Really looked. Seeing the daughter who'd grown up faster than any child should have to, who understood sacrifice because she'd lived it every day since her mother died. "I promised I'd be home by 4. Harper held up her pinky finger. "Pinky promise you'll come back. That's the strongest kind." He linked his pinky with hers. "I promise. To the moon and back." Harper's smile returned. "And back again. Forever." He kissed her forehead, held her for 10 seconds that weren't nearly enough, then forced himself to stand, to step away, to choose the many over the one because she'd given him permission. Mrs. Hoffman walked him to the exit. "Mason, she left you something." She handed him a folded piece of construction paper. He opened it carefully, recognizing Harper's careful printing. The image showed a boat on blue water, a man in an orange suit standing at the front, people climbing out of waves, a yellow sun drawn with radiating lines like hope made visible. At the bottom, in Harper's neatest handwriting, "My daddy the hero." She made it this morning, before she got sick. She said she knew you were going to do something important today. Mason's hands shook. He folded it carefully, tucked it into his uniform pocket over his heart. Take care of her, Louise. With my life. Now go save those people so you can come home to her. The Uber back to Grandstone Plaza took 18 minutes. Mason used the time to call Sarah to confirm the helicopter departure to receive updates. 16-degree list now, timeline collapsing from 18 hours to 14. The hotel lobby buzzed with controlled chaos. News vans lined Michigan Avenue, reporters doing stand-ups, the story already spreading. Decorated veteran emerges from hiding to lead impossible rescue. Garrett intercepted him. Mace, you're all over the news. They're calling you a legend. Mason felt nothing about that. Where's the Coast Guard team? Conference room B. The command center had expanded. Sarah looked up when he entered. Harper? Stable. In good hands. I'm ready. Sarah studied him, looking for cracks in the armor. She must have been satisfied. Gear up. Helicopter leaves in 40 minutes. The locker room smelled of neoprene and sweat. Mason stripped off his janitor's uniform, folding it carefully. 3 years of his life reduced to polyester and memories. The Coast Guard dry suit hung on a rack. Bridger, M, CPO. The fabric felt familiar in ways that transcended muscle memory, settling onto his frame like identity he'd been denying. Helmet with mounted light. Rescue knife Kate had given him. Engraving reading Always Come Home. K. Life vest. Radio. Tether. Each piece a ritual. The final piece, the shoulder patch with Ironside embroidered in gold thread, had been sitting in a cardboard box in his apartment closet since separation. He'd brought it today without consciously deciding to. He velcroed it onto his shoulder. The weight felt heavier than physics allowed. Garrett appeared in the doorway. Jesus, Mace, you look like someone who could save 800 people. Mason checked his reflection in the steel locker door. Every rescue is chaos held together by training and luck. The trick is making sure nobody sees the chaos part. They shook hands. Bring them home, brother. And bring yourself home. Harper needs her father. I know. The rooftop helipad offered unobstructed views of Chicago sprawling in every direction. The MH-65 Dolphin sat ready, rotors beginning their preliminary spin. Sarah waited beside the aircraft. Final briefing. Current ship status, 16-degree list, taking water in 3 compartments. Captain Holbrook estimates 12 hours until catastrophic roll, but engineering says 10, maybe 8. We don't have time for careful. Mason absorbed the information. Crew? Warren Kelly's running boat 2, 48 years old, 26 years experience. You'll like him. Stubborn as hell, but knows his business. Swimmers? Jackson Reeves you met. Also Ashley Brennan, 23, Texas, top of her class. GPS navigation? Sarah's expression shifted. That's the problem. Lead boat's GPS system failed. Saltwater corrosion. We can replace it, but that's 6 hours minimum. The implications hit immediately. Navigating without GPS meant pure dead reckoning, trusting instinct and memory over technology. I'll navigate without it. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Mace, that channel nearly killed you with GPS 5 years ago. I ran it in a Category 3 storm at midnight with instruments frozen solid and Marcus bleeding out beside me. I know every meter. The GPS was always just confirmation of what the water was already telling me. Silence stretched between them. If you miss that dogleg turn, I won't. You can't promise that. Mason's voice dropped, hardened. No, I can't promise it. But I can promise that without me, your boats don't make it through. With me, they have a chance. That's the best odds you're going to get. Sarah held his gaze for 5 seconds, then nodded. Okay, We go on your navigation, but I'm putting Reeves in your boat as safety observer. Agreed. The helicopter's rotors reached full speed. Mason climbed aboard, strapping into the jump seat, watching Chicago fall away beneath him as the aircraft banked northwest toward Alaska, toward water cold enough to stop a heart in minutes, toward 847 strangers whose survival depended entirely on whether a janitor could remember how to be a hero. He pulled out Harper's drawing, studied the simple lines and bright colors. She'd drawn him larger than life, the way children saw their parents before experience taught them about mortality and limitation. The flight took 7 hours with one refueling stop in Fargo. Mason slept in 45-minute increments, the pattern he'd learned during deployments where rest was tactical necessity rather than luxury. His dreams were fragmented, non-linear. Kate alive and laughing, then Kate on the ICU bed with machines breathing for her, then Harper at 5 asking why Mommy wouldn't wake up, then Marcus in the water, blood turning the foam pink, eyes already empty while Mason screamed for medevac that wouldn't arrive in time. Then the 12th fisherman sinking, fingers an inch from Mason's grip, the man's face transforming into Thomas Morrison's, then Harper's, then every person he'd ever failed to save compressed into a single accusatory stare that followed him down into darkness. He woke over the Yukon Territory, the landscape below empty of human presence, just mountains and forests, and the kind of wilderness that didn't care whether people lived or died, that predated civilization and would outlast it, that rendered human drama meaningless against geologic time. Air Station Kodiak appeared through the clouds, runways and hangars and personnel moving with purpose across tarmac that had witnessed countless departures toward danger. The Dolphin touched down at 2143 local time. March. Darkness already settled over Alaska, temperature sitting at -5 Fahrenheit. Wind coming off the ocean, carrying ice crystals that stung exposed skin like airborne razors. Mason stepped onto the tarmac and the smell hit him. Salt water, diesel fuel, neoprene, the particular combination that meant Coast Guard operations, that triggered memories he'd been suppressing for 5 years, that made his body remember what his mind had been trying to forget. The staging area occupied a massive hangar, 6 rigid-hull inflatable boats lined up like ammunition, crews performing final equipment checks, rescue swimmers reviewing protocols. The energy was controlled chaos, organized urgency, the atmosphere before every major operation when everyone understood lives depended on getting details right. A boat chief approached, Kelly, the one Sarah had mentioned, face like carved granite, eyes that had seen things they couldn't unsee. Chief Bridger, Warren Kelly, Boat 2 commander, heard a lot about you. They shook hands, the grip measuring each other, establishing pecking order. Don't believe everything you hear. Kelly's mouth quirked into something almost resembling a smile. Sarah Blackwell doesn't exaggerate, and she says you're the only person who can get us through that channel. That's good enough for me. How's your crew? Solid. Young but trained right. They'll follow orders and won't panic when it gets bad. It's going to get bad. I know. That's why we're bringing you. Sarah gathered everyone for final briefing, the room falling silent as personnel arranged themselves around tactical displays showing the Arctic Majesty's current status. 17-degree list, 3 compartments flooded, timeline revised downward again to 8 hours maximum before she rolled. Her voice carried across the space, professional, urgent. Listen up. Current situation is deteriorating faster than projections. Ship's captain is requesting immediate evacuation. The rock field extends half a mile in all directions. Standard approach puts our boats at risk of hull damage. Chief Bridger has identified an alternate route, a 40-foot channel that standard sonar doesn't map. He's run it before. We're going in on his navigation. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crews. Uncertainty, skepticism, the natural resistance to trusting someone they'd never worked with on a mission where mistakes meant drowning. Kelly's voice cut through the whispers. Chief Bridger has 437 documented saves over 16 years. Anyone here have better credentials? No? Then shut up and listen. Silence returned. Sarah continued. Tide window opens at 0214, 47-minute duration. We run convoy formation. All boats through together, load maximum capacity. Return before window closes. Chief Bridger pilots lead boat. Everyone else follows his wake exactly. No improvisation, no shortcuts. Questions. Ashley Brennan raised her hand, young face showing determination mixed with fear she was trying to hide. Ma'am, what's our contingency if someone doesn't make it through the channel? Sarah's expression hardened. Then the rest of us finish the job and bring everyone else home. We don't stop. We don't turn back. We complete the mission or we die trying. Anyone not comfortable with that, speak now. Nobody spoke. Good. Boats in water in 90 minutes. Use the time to prep gear, review assignments, make peace with whatever god you pray to. Dismissed. The room dispersed, crews moving toward their vessels, swimmers checking equipment for the 100th time. Mason found a quiet corner, pulled out his phone. Signal was weak but functional. He texted Mrs. Hoffman. How is she? The response came quickly. Sleeping, stable. Labs look good. Doctor says she can probably go home tomorrow if numbers hold steady. Relief flooded through him, sharp enough to hurt. He typed, Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm keeping my promise. She knows. Be safe, Mason. Come home. He put the phone away, closed his eyes, let himself have 30 seconds of being Harper's father instead of Chief Petty Officer Ironside, 30 seconds of feeling the fear he couldn't afford to show. Then he stood, walked to Boat 1, started the pre-flight checklist that would determine whether 847 people lived or died. The boat felt smaller than he remembered, 12 feet of aluminum and rubber separating flesh from 40-degree water. Engine reliable but not powerful enough to overcome serious current. Steering responsive but requiring constant attention. Reeves and Brennan climbed aboard, arranging gear, testing radio communications. Kelly brought Boat 2 alongside, his crew mirroring the preparation, veterans moving with economy of motion that came from repetition and consequence. 4 more boats lined up behind them, 6 total, 72 people capacity if they violated safety margins, enough to make a dent in 847 souls but nowhere near enough to evacuate everyone before the ship sank. Mason keyed his radio to all boats' frequency. Ironside to all vessels. Final check before departure. When we hit that channel, you stay tight on my wake. Current will try to push you off course. Ignore instinct. Trust the path I'm cutting. The dogleg turn comes at 60 meters. I'll call it 5 seconds before we hit. When I turn, you turn. Not earlier, not later. Exactly when I turn. Everyone copy. 5 boats responded affirmative. Good. Remember why we're doing this. 847 people are counting on us getting this right. Families, kids, people who woke up yesterday thinking they'd watch the sunrise over Alaska, not wondering if they'd drown in the dark. We're all they've got. So we don't quit. We don't turn back. We get everyone off that ship, or we die trying. He paused, letting the words settle. We don't get to choose who needs saving. We only get to choose whether we answer the call. Tonight, we answer. Kelly's voice came back, steady, committed. Hoo-yah, Chief. The word echoed across the channel, 5 crews responding in unison. Hoo-yah. The traditional Coast Guard affirmation transforming into battle cry, into promise, into the sound of people accepting that the next hours might kill them and choosing to go anyway. Engines roared to life. Boats surged forward into darkness, searchlights cutting through Alaskan night, the convoy forming a line behind Mason like trust made visible, like faith rendered in fiberglass and human courage. The rock field appeared as white water against black ocean, waves crashing against formations that lurked invisible beneath the surface, creating foam patterns that from distance looked like solid wall, like barrier designed to destroy anything stupid enough to approach. Reeves's voice carried tension poorly disguised as professionalism. "Chief, I don't see the gap. Recommend we adjust heading." Mason's hands stayed steady on the wheel, eyes reading water the way Harper read insulin dosages, by necessity, by practice, by understanding that mistakes meant death. "Negative. Gap's there. You're not supposed to see it yet." 50 meters. The roar of water on rocks grew louder, drowning out engine noise, vibrating through the hull like warning from physics itself. Kelly on the radio. "Ironside, Boat 2, confirming coordinates. I'm showing solid obstruction ahead." "Coordinates confirmed. Trust the nav." 30 meters. Brennan grabbed the safety rail, knuckles white, young face showing the exact moment when training collided with reality, and reality proved significantly more terrifying than classroom scenarios suggested. 20 meters. Mason felt it. Temperature shift so subtle that instruments wouldn't register it. 2-degree differential in water flowing through the gap versus water deflecting around rocks, the kind of data that only someone who'd experienced it before could recognize and trust. His hands adjusted course 5 degrees port. "All boats, adjust heading 5 port on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark." The convoy turned in unison. Reeves started to say something. Protest, prayer, profanity. Then the boat hit the gap, and words became irrelevant. Rock walls materialized on both sides, 40 feet separating survival from destruction. The channel so narrow that searchlights illuminated barnacles on stone faces, so tight that any navigation error measured in inches would shred the hull like tissue paper. Water sprayed over the bow, temperature drop instantaneous and shocking, the kind of cold that stole breath and replaced it with ice. Mason fought the wheel as current grabbed the boat, trying to push them sideways into rocks that would kill everyone aboard before they had time to scream. His arms burned, shoulders screaming protest, every muscle engaged in the simple task of keeping 12 feet of inflatable rubber pointed in the direction that meant life instead of death. Behind them, boats 2 through 6 entered the channel, searchlights creating a tunnel of illumination, 5 crews experiencing simultaneously the terror and exhilaration of doing something that should be impossible. Mason counted in his head, 30 meters, 40, 50, the rhythm automatic, the numbers marking distance to the dogleg turn that had killed experienced pilots, that represented the single point where the channel transformed from merely dangerous to actively homicidal. "All boats, hard port turn in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Execute." He spun the wheel, boat pivoting, momentum trying to carry them wide into rocks that waited with geological patience for human error to deliver victims. The starboard side scraped stone, fiberglass screaming, sparks visible in peripheral vision, the sound of near disaster that everyone would remember for the rest of their lives, however long or short those lives proved to be. Then they were through, open water spreading before them, the Arctic majesty visible a half-mile distant, emergency lights painting her white hull in shades of red and orange that looked like fire, like warning, like SOS rendered in photons. Mason keyed the radio. "Ironside to all boats, channel complete. Sound off. Boat 2 through clean. Boat 3, minor scrape, hull intact. Boat 4 took damage on the turn, manageable, proceeding to target. Boat 5, clean. Boat 6, static, then took heavy damage, taking on water, returning to shore." Mason's jaw clenched. One boat down before they'd even reached the ship. Capacity reduced from 72 to 60. Boat 6, confirm crew status. "All personnel accounted for. We'll make it back. Sorry, Chief." "Nothing to apologize for. Get your people home safe." 5 boats continued toward the listing vessel. the scale of disaster becoming apparent as distance closed. Passengers crowded on tilted decks, crew members directing traffic toward lowered rope ladders, the ship groaning with sounds that metal shouldn't make. A man in captain's uniform stood at the rail with a bullhorn. Coast Guard vessels, this is Captain Holbrook. Prioritize medical emergencies, then elderly and disabled, then families with children. We've got maybe 6 hours left if we're lucky. Mason brought Boat 1 alongside the port loading area. Crew members had rigged rope ladders down the tilted hull, passengers beginning the terrifying descent toward boats that looked impossibly small against the ocean that wanted to kill them all. First aboard was an elderly man on a stretcher, broken hip from the initial impact, face gray with pain and shock, wife climbing down after him with the careful movements of someone who understood that falling meant dying. Mason helped her into the boat. "You're safe now, ma'am. We've got you." She nodded, unable to speak, tears cutting tracks through salt spray on her cheeks. Second passenger was a woman in her 40s, arms wrapped in improvised bandages from glass lacerations. 8-year-old boy clinging to her with the desperation of a child who'd already watched his world dissolve into chaos. The boy froze on the ladder, terror overriding every survival instinct, small body locked in place. Brennan climbed up without hesitation. "Hey there, buddy. What's your name?" Connor." Connor. That's a strong name. You know what? I bet you're brave enough to climb down with me. Can you do that? Connor managed a nod. Brennan guided him down meter by meter, patient, steady. Third down the ladder, Dr. Ann Morrison, the face from the passenger manifest photo now showing exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. 9-year-old Thomas clinging to her with white-knuckled intensity. Anne's eyes met Mason's, recognition flickering across her features as she registered the Ironside patch. "You're the one who found the channel." Mason's response was automatic. "Let's get you and your son to safety first. Conversations later." Thomas started down the ladder, small hands gripping rope that probably felt too thin to support his weight. His foot slipped on the third rung. He fell. Mason lunged, catching the boy against his chest, absorbing impact that drove air from his lungs. He held Thomas secure, feeling the child's heart hammering. "Got you, son. You're okay." Thomas looked up, brown eyes wide with shock and nascent trust. "You're really strong." The observation caught Mason off guard. "You're really brave. Most kids your age would be screaming." Thomas's voice came out small but determined. "My dad told me before he died that being brave isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway." Harper's words echoing from a stranger's mouth, the universe demonstrating that certain truths were universal. "Your dad was right." Mason set Thomas down in the boat, watched Anne embrace her son, then turned back to continue loading as time and physics conspired toward deadlines that wouldn't negotiate. 14 passengers total in Boat 1, overcapacity, violation of safety protocols, necessary compromise between ideal and possible. The other boats reported similar numbers. "All boats, begin return transit. Same formation, same discipline. Let's get these people home." The channel crossing was rougher on the return. Tide beginning to shift, current increasing from 6 to 7 knots, waves building in the confined space. The boat responded sluggishly with extra weight, steering delayed. The dogleg turn came up faster than anticipated. Mason called it, spun the wheel, felt the boat swing wide despite maximum input. They hit the turn too fast, scraping along the rock wall hard enough to crack fiberglass, hard enough to open a small breach that immediately started taking on water. Reeves saw it first. "Chief, we're flooding!" Brennan activated the bilge pump without being told, the electric motor whining as it fought against incoming ocean. Mason assessed. Leak manageable. Pump keeping pace, they'd make it to shore if nothing else went wrong. Behind them, Boat 4 wasn't as fortunate. Kelly's voice came over the radio, calm despite circumstances that warranted panic. Boat 4's in trouble. They're listing pumps not keeping up. They're not going to make shore. Mason looked back, saw Boat 4 low in the water, crew already preparing for abandon ship procedures. Boat 6, intercept Boat 4. Transfer passengers and crew. Boat 4, abandon vessel and evacuate to Boat 6. The transfer happened in open water, passengers climbing across between boats while waves tried to capsize both vessels. 10 people moving from sinking ship to questionable salvation. Boat 4 went under 90 seconds after the last person cleared. 12 feet of fiberglass disappearing beneath gray water, leaving only bubbles and the knowledge that equipment failed, that plans collapsed, that survival was always conditional. 5 boats became 4. Capacity dropped from 60 to 48. Shore appeared through the darkness, lights marking the staging area where ambulances waited. Mason ran Boat 1 onto the beach, deliberate grounding that let passengers disembark without wading through water cold enough to induce cardiac arrest. 75 people rescued. 772 still aboard the sinking ship. 1 boat lost, 1 crew exhausted. Timeline compressing. Mason's phone vibrated. Mrs. Hoffman calling, not texting, which meant bad news. "Louise?" Her voice shook. "Mason, Harper had another seizure. The DKA triggered it. They had to intubate her. She's on a ventilator now, sedated but stable. The doctors say she'll be okay, but... Mason, I think you should come home." The world tilted. Static filled Mason's ears. Intubated? The electrolyte imbalance from the ketoacidosis. It caused the seizure. They had to protect her airway. But she's stable, Mason. She's going to be okay. Sarah was beside him before he realized he'd sat down. "Mace, what's wrong?" He showed her the phone, unable to form words. Sarah read his face, understood immediately. "Go. We'll figure something else out." Mason looked at the staging area. 75 survivors being triaged, 4 boats refueling, 772 people still waiting. Thomas Morrison's voice saying, "Being brave means doing it anyway." Harper's drawing in his pocket showing him larger than life. "How long until next convoy?" 90 minutes for refuel and crew rotation." "I can't leave them." Sarah's voice went gentle, maternal. "You can. Those people will survive or they won't. But Harper only has one father." Mason stood, legs shaking, mind fragmenting between duty and love, between strangers and daughter, between the many and the one. "Give me until dawn. If we're not done by then, I'll consider leaving. But right now, 700 people are running out of time, and I'm the only person who can get boats through that channel." Sarah started to argue, saw his face, recognized that some decisions couldn't be changed by logic or emotion. Dawn. Then we revisit. Over the next 6 hours, Mason piloted 9 more convoys through the channel. The operation became a blur of exhaustion and repetition. Navigate rocks, load passengers, return, refuel, repeat. Boat 3 took heavy damage during Convoy 4 and had to abort. 4 boats became 3. Capacity dropped to 36 per run. The math was brutal. 3 boats, 36 capacity, 697 people remaining. 19 convoys needed. 6 hours left before the ship rolled. Physically impossible. Kelly pulled Mason aside at hour 7. "Chief, we need a new strategy. We can't evacuate everyone at this rate." Mason's exhausted mind ran scenarios, discarded impossibilities, found the only option that might work. Continuous relay. Stop waiting for full convoys. 1 boat always at the ship loading, 1 in transit through the channel, 1 at shore offloading. Continuous loop. No downtime. Kelly's eyes widened. That means non-stop operations. No rest. Crews will be operating past exhaustion. For 600 people, we can do it. Kelly nodded slowly. All right, Chief, let's do it. The relay system began at hour 8. Mason piloted lead boat for every channel transit, the only one who could navigate blind through rocks that would kill anyone else. The channel runs blurred together, each crossing a fresh negotiation with physics and probability, and the fundamental hostility of water that wanted them dead. Hour 9. Mason's hands shook on the wheel from hypothermia that hadn't fully resolved and adrenaline that kept dumping in waves. His vision blurred from exhaustion. He missed the dogleg turn by 18 inches, scraped rocks that opened a 4-inch gash in the hull, water pouring in faster than the bilge pump could handle. Chief, we're going down! Mason forced his fingers to grip, forced his mind to focus. Not yet. Everybody bail. Use anything. Thomas Morrison was in this load, using his baseball cap to scoop water, 9-year-old arms working with determination that shamed every adult who'd ever quit when things got difficult. They made shore with 6 inches to spare before the boat sank in 3 feet of water at the beach. Sarah met Mason at the waterline. That's it, Mace. You're done. You can barely stand. Mason looked past her at the ship visible on the horizon, listing 23 degrees now. How many are still out there? 507. Then I'm not done. You don't have a boat. Put me on Kelly's boat. I'll co-pilot. Sarah stared at him, seeing something beyond stubbornness, beyond duty, recognizing obsession and penance, and a man trying to save everyone because he couldn't save Marcus or Kate. Warren, you copy? Kelly's voice came back steady. Copy command. You just got a new co-pilot. Kelly didn't hesitate. Welcome aboard, Chief. Let's finish this. Mason climbed into Kelly's boat, the veteran chief watching him with concern. Chief, no disrespect, but you look like hell. Feel worse than I look, but 800 people don't care how I'll. They ran 6 more convoys over the next 3 hours. Each run through the channel was a fresh confrontation with mortality. Each successful extraction, a temporary victory against probability that was fundamentally hostile to human survival. At hour 12, the ship's captain called emergency evacuation. All Coast Guard vessels, Captain Holbrook. We've reached 27-degree list. Hull stress indicators are critical. I'm ordering abandon ship. All remaining passengers to lifeboats. The klaxons started wailing, the universal sound of disaster finally exceeding containment. 400 people rushed toward lifeboat stations. Half the boats were already underwater from the list. The rest had capacity for 200 maximum, leaving 200 souls with the choice between staying aboard or jumping into 40-degree water. Mason was mid-channel when the alarm sounded, Kelly at the helm, both understanding immediately that the timeline had just collapsed from hours to minutes. Kelly pushed the throttle to maximum, the boat screaming through water. They hit the dogleg turn at dangerous speed, the hull slamming into rocks hard enough to open new leaks. But they made it through, emerged into open water, and saw nightmare made manifest. Lifeboats launching, orange rafts dropping into black ocean, passengers jumping, dozens of them, hitting the water in life vests, survival time measured in minutes before hypothermia shut down organs and stopped hearts. The ship groaned, metal tearing, the sound that preceded every maritime disaster in history. Mason's training overrode everything else. All boats, mass water rescue, pull everyone you can reach. Helicopters start extraction. We've got 20 minutes before hypothermia starts killing people. Move fast, move careful, don't miss anyone. Kelly brought them alongside a cluster of swimmers. Mason and the crew pulled people aboard one by one. Woman in her 50s, hypothermic but conscious. Teenage boy, terrified but functional. Elderly man, unconscious, requiring immediate CPR that Brennan started without being told. The man coughed, vomited water, gasped for air. Got him. He's breathing. Mason scanned the water, looking for swimmers who'd drifted away from the main group, who needed someone to care enough to come get them. He saw her, little girl, maybe 7, drifting away from the rescue pattern, no adult visible nearby. Blonde hair spread across the water like accusation, like Harper transposed into this moment. There. 2:00, 20 meters. Kelly maneuvered closer. Mason stripped off his life vest, checked the rescue knife. Chief, what are you doing? Mason's answer was simple, direct. The ones furthest out die first. Someone needs to swim to them. Kelly's voice carried protest and resignation. In 40-degree water, you'll have 10 minutes before you go hypothermic. Mason was already at the rail. Then I better work fast. He dove. The cold hit like knives, like fire, like every nerve ending screaming simultaneously. His body seized, breath knocked out, training fighting against physiology that was trying to force gasp reflex that would flood his lungs. He controlled the breathing, 4 counts in, smooth and deliberate, began swimming toward the girl with strokes that were efficient, economical, burning precious calories to generate heat that was bleeding away faster than metabolism could replace it. 20 meters. 15. 10. Each stroke harder than the last, cold stealing strength from muscles, turning fingers numb, shutting down peripheral circulation to protect core temperature that was dropping anyway. He reached her, small body barely responsive, lips already blue, eyes unfocused. I've got you, sweetheart. Hold on to my neck. Her arms wrapped around him, weak, fading. Mason turned back toward the boats, began swimming with one arm, the other supporting the girl, each meter feeling like miles. 10 meters to the nearest boat. Reeves was there, reaching over the gunwale, shouting encouragement that Mason couldn't process through the roar of blood in his ears. 5 meters. His vision tunneled, peripheral awareness collapsing inward, body prioritizing brain function over everything else. Reeves grabbed the girl, hauled her aboard. Mason reached up, fingers brushing the rail, too numb to grip, muscles refusing to obey commands. He went under. Silence. Darkness. Pressure. The water closing over him like grave, like end, like the conclusion he'd been running from since Marcus died and Kate died and everything that mattered disappeared except Harper. And now Harper was intubated, and he was drowning, and the universe was demonstrating that heroism was just another word for hubris. Then hands grabbed him, Reeves and Brennan together, hauling him up, dragging him over the rail, dumping him on the deck where he lay coughing water and shaking so violently that his teeth chattered loud enough to hear over the engine. Thermal blankets appeared, wrapped around him by hands that were trying to save his life while he'd been trying to throw it away. Brennan's voice cut through the hypothermic fog. Chief, you're done. You hear me? You're done. Mason's teeth chattered out the only response that mattered. How many still in water? Reeves looked, counted, consulted with other boats via radio. Maybe 60. Helicopters are getting them. Mason tried to sit up. The world spun. His vision went gray at the edges. Then we keep working. Brennan pushed him back down. Sir, you can't. You'll die. Mason's final words before his eyes closed came out barely audible. Then I'll die trying. That's the job. The world went dark. Consciousness returned in fragments. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic smell, the steady beep of cardiac monitors tracking a rhythm that meant alive, despite circumstances that had argued otherwise. Mason's eyes opened to white ceiling tiles, institutional patterns designed by people who'd never needed to stare at them while contemplating mortality and failure. A medic leaned into view, young face showing relief mixed with professional disapproval. Chief Bridger, you're in the Air Station Medical Facility. You've been unconscious for 18 minutes. Core temperature dropped to 90 degrees. You're damn lucky you're not dead." Mason's voice came out raw, damaged from salt water and cold. "The girl, the one I pulled out." The medic's expression softened fractionally. "She's fine, hypothermic but alive. You got to her in time." Mason processed this, filed it away in the mental ledger where he tracked successes against failures, lives saved versus lives lost. "How many total?" Final count's still coming in, but preliminary numbers show 831 survivors, 12 passenger fatalities, 6 crew, 831, 12 dead, 98% survival rate on an operation that should have killed everyone, that had violated every safety protocol, that had succeeded because people chose to attempt impossible things and occasionally the universe permitted success. Sarah appeared in the doorway, face showing exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. "Mace, how are you feeling?" Mason sat up despite protests from muscles that had been pushed past reasonable limits. "Functional. What's the status on remaining survivors?" Sarah's mouth quirked into something resembling a smile. "Everyone's accounted for. Last helicopter extraction happened 20 minutes ago. The ship went down 37 minutes ago. Bow went under first, stern lifted vertical. She slid beneath the surface in about 90 seconds. Captain Holbrook was the last one off." The image formed in Mason's mind. Massive vessel reduced to bubbles and debris. 831 people alive because strangers decided their survival mattered more than personal safety. "I need to call my daughter." Sarah handed him his phone. "Harper first. Then we talk about what happens next." He dialed Mrs. Hoffman, hands shaking from more than hypothermia. She answered on the first ring, voice carrying relief. "Mason, she's awake. They extubated her 2 hours ago. She's breathing on her own, talking, asking for you." The words hit like absolution, like forgiveness he hadn't known he needed. "Can I talk to her?" Rustling sounds, then Harper's voice, weak but unmistakably alive, unmistakably his daughter. "Daddy?" Mason's throat closed around words that wouldn't form. He forced them out anyway, rough and broken. "Hey, baby girl, I'm here, I'm okay." Harper's response came with the matter-of-fact certainty that characterized children who'd grown up too fast. "I knew you would be. I saw the news. They said you saved 800 people. That's a lot of people, Daddy. It was a team effort. Lots of people helped." Harper's voice carried the gentle correction of someone who understood truth better than the person speaking. "But you're the one who showed them the way. That's what the news said, that you found a path nobody else could see." Mason thought about the channel, about navigating by temperature gradients and memories of Marcus bleeding out beside him, about choosing to dive into water that should have stopped his heart because a little girl he'd never met needed someone to care enough to come get her. "Sometimes finding the path is easier than walking it, but we made it. Everyone made it home." Harper's next words came out quieter, vulnerable. "When are you coming home, Daddy?" Mason looked at Sarah, the question implicit. Sarah understood without explanation. "Transport leaves in 4 hours, gets you to Chicago by tonight." Mason relayed this to Harper. "Okay, I'll wait. I'm good at waiting." The statement broke something inside him, his 10-year-old daughter declaring expertise at waiting for a father who kept choosing strangers over her presence. "I love you, Harper. More than anything in this world. I love you too, Daddy. To the moon and back again. Forever." He ended the call, sat in silence, processing the gap between the father he wanted to be and the man he'd become. Sarah gave him space, then spoke with the gentleness of someone delivering news that would complicate already complicated circumstances. "Mace, there's something you need to see before you leave." She handed him a tablet loaded with news coverage: CNN, Fox, MSNBC. The story spreading across every platform, the narrative already solidified into mythology. The headlines were variations on a theme. Miracle in Alaska. Decorated veteran saves 831 from sinking ship. Former janitor revealed as Coast Guard legend. Hero fired hours before rescue operation. An interview with Dr. Ann Morrison played, her face showing exhaustion and gratitude. There was a man. His patch said Ironside. He piloted the boat through rocks I couldn't even see. He caught my son when he fell. He jumped into water that should have killed him to save a little girl he'd never met. I've been a doctor for 15 years. I've seen courage in operating rooms and ICUs, but what he did, that's something else entirely. Thomas appeared beside his mother, gap-toothed smile visible. He told me being brave means doing the hard thing even when you're scared. I think he's the bravest person I ever met. Kelly's weathered face filled the screen. Chief Bridger ran 17 personal transits through that channel. His boat sank under him, and he just climbed onto mine and kept going. People talk about dedication, about duty, about service. That man lived it. The final clip showed Vanessa at a press conference, face composed but eyes showing something that might have been regret. A reporter's voice aggressive. Ms. Pierce, you fired Mr. Bridger just hours before he led this rescue operation. Do you regret that decision? Vanessa's response was measured, scripted. More than I can adequately express. Mason Bridger worked at our hotel for 3 years. I saw him every day and I didn't see him, not really. I saw a uniform, a job title, not the human being underneath. Not the man who'd saved 437 lives before he ever touched a mop. Not the father who'd sacrificed his career to raise his daughter. The reporter pressed, "What do you want to say to him?" Vanessa looked directly at the camera. "I'm sorry. I'm profoundly sorry. And if he'll give me the chance, I want to make it right." Mason watched in silence, processing the transformation from invisible custodian to public figure, from anonymous father to celebrated hero. Sarah's voice cut through his contemplation. She's been calling nonstop. Wants to talk when you get back to Chicago. Has an offer she wants to discuss. Mason handed back the tablet. I don't know what to say to her. Sarah's response carried wisdom earned through decades of navigating institutional politics. Then don't say anything until you figure it out. But Maze, whatever you decide, make sure it's for the right reasons. You've spent 5 years being invisible. Maybe it's time to be seen, but on your terms, not theirs. The helicopter departed Air Station Kodiak 4 hours later. Mason slept in fragments, dreams populated by faces from the rescue mixed with faces from operations years past. Chicago appeared through clouds at 20:47 local time, the city's geometry spreading beneath them. The helicopter touched down at O'Hare in a restricted area where reporters couldn't reach. Sarah walked him to ground transportation. Maze, you did something extraordinary up there. 831 people are alive because you refused to accept that saving them was impossible. That matters. Mason's response was automatic. It was a team effort. I just showed them a path. Sarah's expression shifted, hardened. Stop doing that. Stop minimizing what you accomplished. Yes, it was a team effort, but you were the linchpin. Without you, 831 people drown. Accept that. Own it. Mason felt the words land, recognized truth despite internal resistance. I'll work on it. Sarah smiled, genuine this time. Good. Now go see your daughter. Everything else can wait. The Uber dropped him at Northwestern Memorial 43 minutes later. He moved through the emergency entrance without attracting attention. Just another visitor in rumpled clothes, anonymous despite news coverage. Harper's room was on the 4th floor, pediatric unit decorated with murals depicting animals and rainbows. Mrs. Hoffman sat in the chair beside Harper's bed, gray hair disheveled, face showing exhaustion. Harper was awake, propped up on pillows, IV lines still in place but monitors showing numbers that meant stable, that meant recovering. Her face transformed when she saw him, smile breaking across pale features like sunrise over water. "Daddy!" He crossed the room in 4 steps, gathered her carefully against his chest, mindful of IV lines and monitors. "I'm here, baby. I'm here, and I'm not leaving." Harper's arms wrapped around his neck, grip stronger than physiology suggested possible. "You saved everyone. Mrs. Hoffman showed me on her phone. 831 people. That's almost as many days as there are in 3 years." The observation was quintessentially Harper, precise, numerical, finding patterns in quantities others processed as abstract statistics. "I had a lot of help. It wasn't just me." Harper pulled back, fixing him with a look that suggested she'd inherited her mother's ability to detect evasion. "But you're the one who knew the way. You're the one who kept going when it got hard. That's what makes you a hero, Daddy. Not saving everyone. Trying your hardest when everyone else would have quit." Mason recognized his own words reflected back, the lessons he'd taught her being deployed to teach him. Dr. Reyes appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "Mr. Bridger, good timing. Harper's latest labs look excellent. Ketone levels are normalized, blood sugar stable. If numbers hold steady overnight, she can go home tomorrow morning." Relief flooded through Mason's nervous system. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you for taking care of her." Dr. Reyes's expression softened. "She's a remarkable kid. Made friends with every nurse on the floor." Mrs. Hoffman gathered her belongings. Purse, knitting, the paperback romance novel she'd been reading in fragments. "I should go. Give you two some time together. Mason, she was very brave. You should be proud." Mason's throat tightened. "Louise, I don't know how to thank you. What you did..." She waved away the sentiment. "She's family. You don't thank family. You just show up when they need you." She left quietly, closing the door with gentle consideration. Harper patted the bed beside her, inviting him to sit, to stay, to be present. He settled carefully beside her, aware of IV lines and hospital equipment. "Tell me about the rescue, Daddy." Mason considered what to share, what to omit. He opted for honesty tempered by discretion. There was a ship full of people who needed help. The water around the ship was full of rocks that made it dangerous to reach them, but I remembered a path through the rocks from a long time ago, and I showed other people how to follow it. We went back and forth many times, bringing people to safety. Some of it was scary. Some of it was hard. But we kept going until everyone was safe. Harper processed this, face showing concentration. "The news said you jumped into the water to save a little girl. They said the water was so cold you almost died." Apparently his editing hadn't been sufficient. "That's true. She'd drifted away from the other people. Someone needed to swim out to her." "Why did it have to be you?" The question was simple, direct, devastating in its implication. Mason's answer came slowly, carefully. "Because I was the strongest swimmer there. Because I knew I could reach her. Because letting her drown when I could save her would have been choosing safety over doing what needed to be done. And that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want you to become." Harper absorbed this, 10-year-old mind wrestling with ethics and obligation. "But what if you died? What would I do without you?" The fear beneath the question was palpable, real. Mason pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. "I didn't die, baby. I'm here. I came back, just like I promised. But you almost didn't. Almost doesn't count. I'm here. That's what matters." Harper's next words came out muffled against his shoulder. "I was so scared, Daddy. When I saw you go under the water on TV, When they pulled you out and you weren't moving, I thought I was going to lose you like I lost Mommy." Mason's eyes burned. He blinked hard. "I'm sorry I scared you. I'm sorry I put you through that." Harper pulled back, wiping her own eyes, gathering herself with resilience she'd learned from watching him survive. "But that's who you are, Daddy. You help people. That's what makes you special. I don't want you to stop being who you are just because I get scared sometimes." The maturity in her voice was simultaneously beautiful and heartbreaking. "When did you get so wise?" Harper's smile returned, tentative but genuine. "I learned from you." They sat together in comfortable silence, hospital sounds filtering through the door. Harper yawned, exhaustion catching up with her. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" "I'll stay as long as you need me." "Forever?" "Forever?" She settled against him, eyes closing, breathing, evening out. Mason held her, watching her face relax into peace, memorizing the moment because experience had taught him that peace was temporary. His phone vibrated, text from Vanessa Pierce. "I know you just got back. I don't want to intrude. But when you're ready, I'd like to talk. Really talk. No pressure. When you're ready." Mason stared at the message, considering responses. He settled on honesty. "Give me 2 days. I need time with my daughter. Then we can talk." Her response came immediately. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." Morning came slowly. Dr. Reyes arrived at 6:47, reviewing overnight labs, confirming discharge approval. The discharge process took 90 minutes. Paperwork, prescriptions, follow-up appointments. They left through the main entrance at 09118, stepping into March sunshine. The Uber ride to Pilsen took 23 minutes. Harper pressed against Mason's side, talking about school she'd missed and homework she'd need to make up. Their apartment building looked shabby in daylight, peeling paint, cracked concrete steps. Mrs. Hoffman was waiting in the hallway. "Welcome home, Harper. I made your favorite chocolate chip cookies. They're in your apartment, still warm." Harper's face lit with delight. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than he remembered. But Harper's drawings covered one wall, the newest showing him as hero, the boat on water, people being saved, sunshine rendered in yellow crayon. Harper noticed him looking. "I told you that you were going to do something important. I knew before you knew." Mason knelt to her eye level, hands on her shoulders. "You're the most important thing I'll ever do, Harper. Not the rescue, not the people I saved. You, being your father. That's the only thing that matters in the end." Harper's eyes glistened but didn't overflow. "I know, Daddy. And you're the best father in the whole world. But you can be that and a hero. You don't have to choose." The wisdom undid him finally. Tears he'd been holding back since the hospital, since the rescue, since every accumulated crisis compressed into single moment of release. Harper hugged him while he cried, small arms providing comfort that reversed normal parent-child dynamic. When he recovered, she pulled back, wiping his face. "Better? Better. Thank you, baby." "You're welcome. Now can I have cookies?" The abrupt transition to normal childhood concerns made him laugh. "Yes, but only 2. We need to check your blood sugar first." Saturday morning arrived with phone call from Vanessa Pierce, her voice carrying nervousness. "Mason, I know I said no pressure, but I have something I need to ask. Can you come to the hotel tomorrow, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock? I want to make an offer. A real one." Mason considered, weighed obligations against curiosity. "What kind of offer?" Vanessa hesitated. "Director of Safety Operations. Base salary $175,000. Full medical coverage for Harper. Best specialists, best medications. No copays, no deductibles. Flexible schedule. You're home by 4 every day, no exceptions. And the chance to build something that matters, to create systems that protect people instead of just cleaning up after disasters. The numbers were staggering, more than 10 times his janitor salary, enough to afford Harper's insulin without terror, to build security that poverty had made impossible. But numbers weren't the point. The point was whether he could work for someone who'd humiliated him, whether pride permitted acceptance. I have conditions. Vanessa's response came quickly. Name them. Anything reasonable. Mason's voice hardened. Home by 4, every day. No exceptions, no emergencies, no meetings that run late. Harper needs me present, not just employed. Done. Absolutely done. I build my own team, hire who I want, train how I want, implement protocols without interference. Done. And this is the condition that matters most. He paused. You treat every employee in that hotel with dignity. Housekeepers, bellhops, kitchen staff, maintenance workers, everyone. Learn their names. See them as human beings, not functions. No more public humiliations. You create culture where people matter regardless of what uniform they wear. Silence stretched across the connection. Her voice when it came was thick with emotion, poorly concealed. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. I'm still learning, still trying to figure out how to lead without becoming my father. Mason's response was gentle but firm. Then keep learning. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Try to be better today than we were yesterday. Vanessa's exhale carried relief. Does this mean you'll take the job? I'll come tomorrow. We'll talk specifics. No commitments until I hear everything. But yeah, I'm interested. Thank you, Mason. Thank you for giving me this chance. Everyone deserves second chances, even people who fire war heroes. Vanessa laughed, genuine, surprised. I deserved that. Yeah, you did. Sunday morning brought unseasonable warmth. Mason dressed in the only clothes he owned that approached business casual. Khaki pants Kate had bought him for their anniversary 5 years ago, button-down shirt, the blue tie with tiny anchors Harper had picked out. Harper insisted on coming along, arguing that she wanted to see the hotel, wanted to meet the woman who'd fired Daddy. Garrett was working the security desk, face transforming when he saw them enter. Mace, and you must be Harper. Your dad talks about you all the time. Harper extended her hand with poise that exceeded her age. Nice to meet you, Mr. Garrett. Daddy says you were nice to him when other people weren't. Garrett shook her hand solemnly. Your dad's a good man. We're lucky to have him back. Vanessa waited in her office, face showing nervousness that money and power couldn't conceal. Mason, thank you for coming. And you must be Harper. Harper studied Vanessa with intensity that made adults uncomfortable. You're the one who fired my dad. Vanessa's composure faltered. I am. And I was wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. Harper continued staring, processing, performing calculation. Finally, okay. Daddy says everyone deserves second chances. I guess that means you too. Vanessa's eyes glistened. She blinked rapidly. Thank you, Harper. That means more than you know. The conversation shifted to specifics: salary, benefits, responsibilities. Mason listened carefully, asking questions that revealed expertise Vanessa hadn't known he possessed. When they'd covered everything, Vanessa asked the question that mattered most. So, do we have a deal? Mason looked at Harper, the silent question whether this decision honored what they'd built together. Harper nodded. Permission granted. 2 weeks. I need 2 weeks with Harper before I start. Time to help her catch up on school, to make sure her health is stable. To just be her dad. Take 3. Take a month. Whatever you need. 2 weeks is enough. They shook hands, the contact formalizing agreement. Vanessa walked them to the elevator. Mason, one more thing. The hotel is hosting a gala in 2 months, celebration of our new direction, honoring employees who make this company work. I'd like you to speak, not about the rescue necessarily, just about seeing people, about treating everyone with dignity, about the kind of culture we're trying to build. Mason's immediate instinct was refusal. Public speaking ranked alongside drowning on his list of activities to avoid. But he thought about the 50 employees who'd watched him get fired, about housekeepers and bellhops who labored invisibly. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Harper broke the silence as they neared home. Daddy, are we going to be rich now? The question was innocent, practical. We're going to be comfortable. Not rich, but we'll have enough. Enough for your medicine, enough for better apartment, enough so you don't have to worry. Harper processed this. Can we get ice cream, the good kind? Mason laughed. Yes, baby, we can get ice cream, the good kind, whenever you want. 2 months passed in rhythm that approached normalcy. Mason preparing for new position, designing safety protocols, building team that included Kelly brought in as consultant, Garrett promoted to assistant director. Harper's health stabilized. She returned to school, made friends with Thomas Morrison, whose family had relocated to Chicago, so Anne could take position at Northwestern Memorial, the two children bonding over shared experience. Anne became part of their lives gradually. Coffee that became lunch, that became dinner, that became admission. That attraction existed, that companionship might evolve into something deeper, that moving forward didn't require forgetting Kate, but could honor her memory, while acknowledging that life persisted. The gala arrived on a Saturday in late May. Grandstone Plaza transformed into celebration space. 300 guests, including employees and board members and press. Mason stood backstage in rented tuxedo that Harper had helped select, the tie, still blue with anchors, the only element he'd insisted on preserving. She waited at a front table with Anne and Thomas and Mrs. Hoffman. Vanessa walked on stage to applause. Thank you all for being here. Tonight we celebrate transformation of this company, of our culture, of our understanding about what makes an organization successful. It's not revenue or market share or competitive advantage. It's people. The ones we see and the ones we've trained ourselves to overlook. She paused, eyes finding Mason in the wings. 6 months ago, I made the worst decision of my career. I fired a man for doing his job exceptionally well. I humiliated him because I was afraid that showing respect for his competence would make me look weak. I chose cruelty over compassion because my father taught me that compassion was liability, that kindness was weakness. The room had gone silent. That man went on to save 831 lives. When he came back, I asked what he wanted. You know what he said? She turned, gesturing for Mason to join her. Mason walked on stage, Harper's voice cutting through his anxiety. That's my daddy, Vanessa continued. He said, treat every employee with dignity. Learn their names. See them as human beings. Not a raise. Not an apology. Just basic human decency. And that's when I understood that true leadership isn't about power or control. It's about creating environments where people can be their best selves, where competence is recognized regardless of job title, where everyone from CEO to custodian understands they matter. She stepped aside, yielding the podium. Mason gripped the lectern, looking out at 300 faces, seeing Garrett and Kelly and staff members, seeing Harper beaming with pride. His voice came out steady despite internal tremor. I'm not good at speeches. I'm better at doing than talking. But Vanessa asked, so I'll try. He thought about what mattered, what truth needed speaking. 5 years ago, I lost everything. My partner died in my arms during a rescue. My wife died 3 months later. I had a 4-year-old daughter and no idea how to be the parent she needed. So I disappeared, became invisible. Took a job where nobody would ask questions, where I could just exist without being seen. The room was absolutely silent now. For 3 years it worked. I was safe, alone, invisible. Then someone saw me. Not in a good way. I got fired, but it forced me out of hiding. And then someone else saw me and asked me to be who I used to be. And my daughter, his voice caught. He pushed through. My beautiful, brave daughter told me to go save 800 strangers even though she was sick, even though she needed me because she understood something about duty and sacrifice that most adults never learn. He looked directly at Harper. Here's what I learned. You can't heal in hiding. You can't grow in isolation. You can't live if nobody sees you. Vanessa asked what I wanted. I wanted every person in this building to be seen. Really seen. Not as function or job title, but as human being with story worth knowing, with value worth recognizing, with dignity worth protecting. His final words came from place of certainty, earned through crisis and loss. So, see each other, learn names, ask questions, understand that we're not job titles or organizational charts. We're humans, complex, flawed, trying our best, and we all deserve to be seen. The applause started slowly, built momentum, became standing ovation. Harper was first on her feet, Thomas beside her, Anne and Mrs. and Hoffman following, the applause spreading until 300 people stood acknowledging not just Mason, but the principle he'd articulated, the vision he'd offered. Inside, Harper waited with Anne and Thomas. The ride home passed in sleepy silence, Harper nodding off against his shoulder. Mason carried her upstairs, tucked her into bed, watched her breathe with the gentle rhythm that meant peace. Her drawing still occupied the wall. Boat on water, people being saved, sunshine refusing to acknowledge darkness. She'd drawn him larger than life, the hero she needed him to be. He understood now that she hadn't drawn fantasy. She'd drawn truth, not about his capabilities, but about his willingness to try. Not about succeeding always, but about never stopping. Not about being invincible, but about being present. Mason Bridger wasn't Ironside anymore. He was just Mason, Harper's dad, director of safety, friend to people who'd once been strangers, partner to woman he was learning to love, neighbor to people who'd sustained him, colleague to workers who deserved dignity. And for the first time in 5 years, just Mason was enough. He kissed Harper's forehead, whispered words she couldn't hear but he needed to say, "I love you, baby," to the moon and back, then added the response she always gave, "And back again, forever." Harper stirred, murmured something in sleep. Mason reached for her hand, held it gently, felt her pulse steady beneath his fingers. Proof of life, promise of tomorrow, reason for everything. "I'm here, baby," he whispered. "Always here, forever here." And meant it.